The royal world is reeling after a shocking revelation emerged from the man closest. But just moments ago, he exposed a secret about Queen Camilla that is so dark. What deep cracks will this new revelation expose inside the family? Join us as we uncover Princess Anne's husband's stunning revelation about Camilla's dark. Imagine two powerful royal women tied together by family duty, yet that is the absolute essence of Princess Anne and Queen Camilla's complicated relation. Instead, their relationship has always been marked by deep suspicion and a rivalry. However, this sharp discord between them did not emerge overnight. It had been simmering for decades, beginning with a highly tangled romance in the 1970s. Though they never married because of royal restrictions around Andrew being a Catholic, there was always, and when Camilla and Andrew married in 1973. Anne reportedly found it very difficult to warm up to seeing the woman who married her but Camilla did not stop there. She actually went on to marry Anne's brother Charles. Those early romantic entanglements left a bitter taste in Anne's mouth. But while she found Anne's cold demeanour incredibly hard to cope with, and where Camilla began to prefer being referred to simply as Queen rather than the tradition, and so she bluntly declared that Camilla was not the Queen but merely a Queen consort. Tensions quickly flared up between the two royal women. Even though they later made sure to show polite faces in public, it was completely clear they only years after her relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles ended. Princess Anne met. Soon they tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony, and it was Sir Timothy who would later. But who exactly is Sir Timothy, and what dark secrets were hidden behind those? Sir Timothy Laurence has never been a man easily rattled, having served as a so he carries himself with the strict discipline of a person who spent a lifetime at sea. His role has always been simple: to protect and support the monarchy and stay completely clear. Yet by 2025, Timothy found himself standing in the middle of it, unable to ignore. For many years he had quietly watched from the sidelines as Camilla's presence grew larger. At first he dismissed Anne's biting criticisms as just her natural hard to please. But as time passed, Timothy noticed a troubling pattern. Camilla's behaviour was not. It seemed highly calculated, as if every single move was another step in her. There was the long history of Camilla's strategic romances and how they slowly led her, especially how her notorious affair with Charles helped unravel his marriage to Diana. Not only did it lead to Charles and Diana's high-profile divorce, but it also who valued duty and family above all else. These painful betrayals, and she firmly believed that Camilla was unfit for the royal role she had claimed, especially after Andrew privately revealed to Timothy that Camilla had ignored her own while she remained committed to her marriage. Timothy realized there was actually much more. Ever since King Charles's health began to falter, Timothy noticed a distinct change but during important meetings and intimate family gatherings, Timothy realized she constantly inserted herself into conversations about the Regency Act and success. Her annoying habit of giving unsolicited advice to William, and especially Kate. To him it looked like total overreach, and to Anne it was deeply infuriating. Under the convenient guise of protecting his peace, she increasingly limited crucial. Anne would return home frustrated after yet another suddenly cancelled meeting with her brother, blaming Camilla for shutting her out completely. Even small private family gatherings. That was only the beginning. Timothy noticed Camilla's highly toxic way with words. She would sneer to Charles, "Anne is too busy with her horses and charity work." She would quietly voice deep worries about William being far too modern. Once these toxic remarks leaked out, people saw them for exactly what they were: calculated attempts to poison the royal well and frame Camilla as the king's sole. They praised Camilla's steadfast leadership, calling her the queen who holds the monarchy together. These reports praised her strength, completely ignoring Princess Anne's decades of service. To Timothy, this was a transparent campaign orchestrated by Camilla's allies and Princess Anne's absolute fury over these fake stories made it separately they might have been tolerable, but together they created a massive wall of suspicion. And then came Royal Ascot 2025. The summer air buzzed, but behind that highly polished spectacle, a pale King Charles sat his remaining Standing close by, Timothy overheard Camilla lean in toward her advisor and whisper, This crown must remain in my hands forever, no matter what happens to Charles. An icy chill surged through his veins, sharper than any brutal winter storm. For the first time he saw Camilla not just as a difficult royal in-law, but as an act, and so he began searching for cold, hard truths. What would he finally, behind the heavily guarded walls of Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, dark secret? But this scandalous secret was Camilla's absolute darkest, most dangerous concern. Sir Timothy soon realised that what he overheard was far more than a fleeting comment. Timothy had uncovered a devious royal plot designed to keep King Charles bound directly. Ever since the king's sudden cancer diagnosis, his deteriorating health had become he had barely ruled for 3 years when his body began to fail. And his once confident royal presence was replaced by a terribly frail and weary look. But behind palace doors a much darker game was being played. New reports alleged that Camilla was pressuring the king's personal doctor into a deeply, not quite enough to kill him, but just enough to keep him frail, dependent, and entire, a monarch kept alive but left far too weak to ever challenge her reign. According to highly shocking evidence, Camilla made her dark plans chillingly clear. If you slip, if you speak, I will ruin you and your entire family. It was the cold calculation of a woman determined to wield absolute unchecked power, and the terrified doctor completely cornered by threats to his family and royal career. While this terrifying medical manipulation secured Camilla's ultimate control over the terribly weakened both physically and emotionally of vulnerable King Charles, on the surface they looked completely harmless, just routine paperwork. But the legal documents would have illegally transferred complete control of Princess Anne's mass and funded heavily by the sovereign grant directly into Camilla's greedy hands. For Princess Anne, these funds were never just numbers on a ledger. They represented These funds financed hospitals, community programs, and horse charities. That meant by stealing these funds, Camilla was not merely enriching herself. Camilla allegedly blackmailed her sick husband, emotionally playing the tragic role of the deep. She argued that securing her lifelong financial freedom was his primary duty. So how did this incredibly dangerous web finally come to light? It was not Sir Timothy's suspicions alone that exposed Camilla. It actually took Edward Thompson, a low-ranking royal servant at Clarence House, had long witnessed the toxic. For years he stayed quiet, terrified of the consequences. But when, with shaking hands, Edward secretly recorded the whole confrontation on his phone, the moment Sir Timothy watched the footage, he felt a sensation he later described to close friends as a freezing blow to the chest. Here was absolute proof that Camilla's desperate hunger for power had crossed in. Holding this truth gave him the ultimate power to either destroy the royal family or the stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about King Charles's health, it was about the actual soul of the crown, a sacred symbol that millions of people. Yet even with this massive secret weighing heavily on his chest, Sir Timothy knew this was. If Camilla was daring enough to manipulate royal doctors and coerce the king but how would King Charles react when he finally discovered that an enemy had been sharing a completely broken monarch? When the grim truth finally reached, his heart instantly sank. Not just because of the ultimate betrayal, but also because of what it revealed about his own. For decades, Charles had fought tooth and nail to legitimize Camilla before his family. In the face of heavy public outrage, he stood firm, insisting his love for her was to discover that the very woman he had defended with such fierce, stubborn devotion. Bitter memories came flooding back with a sharp sting. He remembered from the very moment he had first introduced her at their royal wedding, where Queen Elizabeth actively avoided taking photos with the newlyweds. Back then, Charles assumed it was just the strict conservatism of an older generation. But with this shocking new revelation, his mother's warning loomed over him like a tragedy. Perhaps his mother had seen it all along. Perhaps while he stubbornly refused, Charles lay there thinking of the grueling months spent in his sick room, physically broken by. He remembered how Camilla used to sit right beside him, holding his hand and whispering sweet. How many of those gentle, tender touches were nothing but rehearsed fake emotion. This sudden realization completely hollowed him out. His body had been. In a single devastating moment, that beautiful illusion was shattered completely. Yet this deeply personal betrayal, as painful as it was, wasn't actually what truly haunted King Charles above everything else was how the rest of the palace, they had sacrificed so much for him, rallying around his throne. And now, for a royal who had spent his entire life preparing to rule, the heavy crown felt more. And for the very first time in his brief reign, Charles questioned whether he had the physical strength. But how would his successor manage this massive royal crisis? Though he was normally the absolute picture of royal restraint. The future king's composure completely shattered when the secret video of Camilla's threats. Listening to her voice dripping with absolute malice, the prince's face drained of all colour. It felt like an actual attempt at assassination, a slow and cruel poisoning of his father. William's anger quickly transformed into absolute purpose. Rising above he fiercely insisted that this was no longer a private dispute between family members. Armed with the mountain of irrefutable evidence he had gathered, While Prince William's response was fury, Princess Anne was utterly heartbroken. The legendary stoic Princess Royal, widely known for her iron will and unshakable, these were not tears of weakness, but of raw, furious grief. She painfully recalled their late mother's final wishes regarding her own financial. She made absolutely sure her daughter's massive charity funds and assets were fully protected. Watching Camilla try and snatch that legacy away was just too much, and grief quickly. Standing right beside William, Anne brought personal history, no highly paid lawyer. She laid out the deep emotional weight of their mother's will, exposing Camilla's shady. While she laid out the facts, the Royal Council of top advisors and senior lawyers, along with the late Queen's most trusted confidants, listened in dead silence. Could a dirty secret like this ever be made public? Would exposing Camilla completely shatter the royal family's fragile reputation in today? Even the most conservative advisors had to admit that if Camilla's greedy plot was it wouldn't just ruin King Charles, it would destroy the monarchy itself. By the time the meeting wrapped up, everyone agreed. Camilla had to be stripped of every single charity fund, every royal asset she tried to grab would go right back to Princess Anne. From now on, she'd be a purely ceremonial figure queen consort in name only. Finally, the council passed one last strict decree. This dirty royal, admitting that the queen consort actively plotted against her own husband, would make the public. Because of that, they decided this ugly truth would stay locked forever inside palace walls. Everything was settled, but Camilla had absolutely no idea her privileged life, the shocking downfall of a queen. When Camilla first got word that her secret plot was blown, you might expect she'd show a little fear, but she did absolutely nothing of the sort. Instead, the walls of Clarence House. She had spent long, calculated decades climbing right to the absolute centre. Losing all that power in one single blow was completely unthinkable to her. Driven by pure desperation, she made a highly reckless move that showed just how. She called in one of her most trusted staffers and gave a truly chilling order to. She blamed him for the entire mess, furious that he'd snooped around and exposed the secret. But this wild hit plot fell apart before it even started. The amateur attempt. Once they found out, it only proved to the council that Camilla was incredibly dangerous, and hearing that her plan had totally failed, Camilla's remaining composure completely. The palace, once her playground for pulling strings, now felt like a high security. Pacing the grand hallways, her mind spun with desperate plans. She tried, but every scheme ended with the exact same harsh realization she was complete. It arrived in a plain, elegant white envelope, officially stamped with the heavy seal. That seal meant absolute trouble. Shaking from head to toe, Camilla ripped. The letter was written in cold, sterile, legal language. It clearly stated she would stay queen consort in title only, with zero official recognition outside of. As her eyes scanned the lines, all the colour drained from her face. Palace staffers would later say she just sat there in silence, clutching the paper so hard. She had spent decades fighting to be recognised as Charles's true partner. The paper slipped from her fingers and drifted to the floor. For a long time she sat complete. She wasn't crying out of sadness for King Charles or the royal family she had broken apart. Later that night, as she stood looking in the mirror, the woman staring back at her was complete. She didn't see a queen anymore, just a wrinkled 78-year-old woman with empty eyes. By nightfall, Camilla's stubborn defiance had completely crumbled, and she locked herself. The palace that was once her grand throne was now just a cell. Her desperate grab for power had not just slipped right through her fingers, it turned complete. No, her true punishment was far worse, living out her remaining days in total. Even though her crimes deserved hard jail time, this quiet reality felt far worse. She spent her remaining years suffocating in emptiness and the cold contempt of her lifelong wicked ambition had shattered into pieces, leaving nothing but wondering if she had ever actually won anything at all. Do you think if you disagree what kind of punishment would actually fit the crime, drop your thoughts. Make sure to like, share and subscribe for more, and do not forget to click that next video. You will love it.